Okay, next we're going to get into evaluating prospects. Now, first we want to be able to tell the difference between a prospect and a suspect. What's going to be able to identify and separate a deal from a dud. Learning to pre-screen commercial property is the most important thing that you're going to learn to do. And you got to know exactly what you're looking at to evaluate it before you can really go out and find it. So that's why we're getting through this evaluating section now. This gives me the difference between success and failure. There's no doubt about it. You need to learn how to pre-screen the time wasters and focus on the low-hanging fruit, okay? When we get into the finding session, it's going to be super powerful, but you, again, need to know how to determine that, what to look for, what terms to ask for, all right? And that's a power session. It's common when getting started in the business to go ahead and become emotionally attached, as I discussed in the what to stay away from when we got to the section on you, the mistakes, what to stay away from. Don't get emotionally attached to the property. It's just a deal. And if it's not a deal, we just move right on. And again, those deals, you know, through time and circumstance, things change. It always changes. A wholesaler's attitude could change in time. It could be one moment that they could be non-motivated, and next thing you know, they thought they were going to get out of their predicament because they have a high-interest note that's going to balloon, and next thing you know, they become super motivated fast. So the reason, guys, why they resurface to you is because what you're showing them is something entirely different than what any other investor on the planet is going to be sharing with them. The rest of the folks out there, they talk. Lip service, lip service, lip service. That's what they do. But what you guys are doing is you guys are showing that you're performance-based through a plan of action. That's what I put together. That's the whole system, is the plan of action. You're showing them, look, here's my acquisition criteria. Where's my brokers? Raise your hand. You're a broker, right? Look, if somebody calls you, what's your first name? Barbara. If somebody calls you and says, hey, Barbara, I'm really interested in some income-producing properties, and I want you to just send me what a good deal looks like. Are you going to take that person very serious? Not really. But if they send you something that's an acquisition criteria that says, this is how we buy, these are the terms that we need, we don't front load our project, we're looking for properties that are being mismanaged, distressed properties, properties that are not operating at their fullest potential, and we can move on these properties quickly. Is that going to answer a lot of questions? Can you tell if that person's a real player? Absolutely. And brokers love that because they work on commission and they guard their time. They guard their time dearly, as you should as well, and as I do. So focus on getting that out there to them. And what I refer to this as is the first crush story. There was an actual deal that I was looking at, and I was even in love with it. I mean, this property was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this was the type of property that looked so good, and it was in such a hot area that we had to make the thing work. What happened was there wasn't ample parking associated with the conversion that we were trying to do on this property. That's the only hang-up. The seller was motivated, everything was there, but the parking issue. And that somebody that would rush into a fire could easily jump into a project like that and get hung up on those mistakes and end up wasting not just money, but wasting time. And again, guys, we can't buy time. Time is something very important. So regardless how hot the property type is, regardless of how hot the area is, regardless if it's sexy property on oceanfront, regardless of what it is, a deal is a deal is a deal. Remember these three things. Number one, write this down. If you can't buy well below retail, we probably are not going to want it. Okay? If you can't buy well below retail, meaning buy it wholesale and get equity at closing. That's so very powerful. Number two, the seller isn't willing to give you favorable terms to eliminate putting down big chunks of cash. They're not truly going to be motivated. So again, if the seller is going to be unwilling to let you get in the deal without throwing down big, huge chunks of cash, all right, you're probably not going to be interested. Okay. Now, number three is we must eliminate debt service. Debt service. Okay? That's not holding costs. That's just debt service. With large sums of money. Skin is one thing, guys. Skin just means that you're showing a good faith deposit. Write that down. Skin is okay in our world to put down a little deposit, but what we want to stay away from is high interest debt service. Taking over somebody's debt. Meaning if they have a shopping center and they're doing debt service on the property and it's not producing income, so they're negative each and every month. Okay? And you have to pay out thousands of dollars. That's just like feeding the pig. We don't want to do that. No, that's not the way we're doing it. Right? Okay. If it's a suspect, go find a prospect. It's as simple as that. If it's a dud, then just find a deal. And the way we do that is to let the brokers know, hey, this does not meet the criteria. This is not what I sent to you. What I sent to you was my acquisition criteria. It spells out exactly what we want, exactly how we buy. It has to meet this simple criteria. And if they're sending you retail deals, it's up to you. It's your job to go ahead and get them out there to remind them. And you need to remember as well that you only want to buy top 1% deals. Retail deals are common. They're not hard to find. They're all over LoopNet. All right. Now, a while ago, I was getting in a lot of retail deals. And I was finding that I still had motivated sellers with retail deals. So what I understood was I could go ahead and apply some strategies for people who are asking retail price. Now, up to this point, I've mastered all the craft, all the strategies, all the techniques to do business with non-retail deals. Now that there was a retail project that was really nice on the table and I could see the future potential, although we were going to be buying as is, it was still retail price, so what it was worth as is. I understood that I could apply the master lease option strategy, the joint venture strategy, and I could get in there and I could go ahead and create income by getting in on retail deals. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, all right? What you want to also do is understand this is not how we buy properties at retail, okay? We're looking for deals that will let us create instant wealth and put us into early retirement. Again, focus on the low hanging. Page 16. What do good deals look like? So what do they look like, right? We know the objective is to find multi-million-dollar properties that are low-risk deals where the sellers are super motivated, offering seller financing. Circle that. I get seller financing on each and every deal, even when I don't need it. And a lot of times if they're not allowing you to get seller financing, it's not going to be a deal that you want to get in. Same reason why the financier is going to want to see you have skin in the game and want to see your commitment, your level of commitment. You're just asking, you're gauging their level of interest to sell to you. How motivated are you, Mr. Seller, to sell to me? You have very little debt that you owe on the property. Would you entertain seller financing? I was sitting at dinner with Paul last night, and we were talking about when we very, very first started out. And I was very young when I purchased my first house. And I purchased it right on the beach. First house was a purchase right on the beach. I knew that that's where I wanted to live, was right on the beach. And when I went to go qualify for a loan, I knew what I could qualify for. And it wasn't a lot of money. It was only a couple $100,000. I was very young. And I ended up asking the owner, because I knew she had the property in her family for a long time, because it was a 50s bungalow. You open up the garage, there was still sand in it. It was right on the beach. So I asked her, not even knowing what I was asking her, I'm only qualified for this amount. Would you mind giving me a loan for the other amount and I'll make payments on it? I was asking for seller financing, and I didn't even know it. Okay? I was asking for seller financing and didn't even know it. She was motivated to sell it because they wanted to sell the property, and she liked me, all right? So that's relationship. She liked me. She thought I was a cute kid. She was really eager to sell to me. She saw I was solid. I was an action taker. I was making it happen. I was working that job. I was making money, but I could only qualify for a certain amount. So we had a relationship together, and she said, look, I'll go ahead and do that for you. And she gave me a second, and I took out a second, and it was a very reasonable interest rate. And that was my first run-in with seller financing. So the thing about it is, guys, now it's just seller financing on steroid. It's no different. It's commercial real estate, guys. People offer seller financing. We're going to talk about certain terms like no payment, no interest. It's underneath each and every one of your noses, each and every day, and it always has been. It's not a new concept. I'm going to explain that just a little bit later. But when we're talking about these type of terms, we want to do deals that are good. They look good. They are advertised out there with seller financing. They're advertised already, okay? Now, the deal has to have a lot of upside. Now, just follow my double, triple rule, and you'll be there, all right? After we put it to the highest best use, that's where the upside is going to be recognized. It's not so much going to be recognized right out of the gate. it's going to be recognized when we put it to its highest and best use. Now, in commercial property, we're either talking about buildings or we're talking about land. Now, there is all kinds of buildings, from apartments to strip centers to shopping centers, distribution centers, town centers. We mentioned big boxes, but in reality, you still really got two types of commercial property. To simplify it, guys, you got buildings and you got land. There's two types of property, all right? Land does come zoned agricultural, residential, commercial, as we mentioned, and buildings come in different shapes and sizes and forms. You still got building and you still got land. And make a little note next to that. As I mentioned before, we're not looking for one owner-user type of buildings where you have to be the user in the building, because it's just one box. There's only one exit strategy. One box, one exit strategy, all right? And when analyzing buildings, the process does still remain close to the same regardless of the type of building, all right? Now, most of them, we're going to cover this later, are going to be valued on their net operating income, NOI. And those numbers are going to be based on the type of property, so make that note. Apartment complexes are perceived to be the less risky than industrial buildings because they're easier to lease out apartments than to bring in new tenants and lease out warehouse and office space. Okay? It's much easier because there's always a demand for apartments. That's why so many people get fixated on apartments and want to jump right into it, is they understand the philosophy of people need a place to live. And industrial and also retail is secondary. There's a major demand for people to have a place to live. Most investors get apartments, and again, the concept's easy to digest. It's houses in a box. All right? The problem is most people scrape up some money and they jump into an apartment complex and they buy what the cap rate is, the measuring stick, which we're going to talk about. And then they barely break even, and then they manage the property, and that's not what we're doing. Okay? That's not what we're doing. We're looking for apartments out there, and if you want to jump into a small apartment building just to get your feet wet in commercial, that's fine. But I'll tell you right now, the day you close on that 12-unit apartment complex, you are only going to wish it was 212 units. The day you close on it, you're going to say, dang it, should have been 212 units. Because it's all about the numbers. A lot of times, you're right on. Yeah, a lot of times we're fixated on these larger numbers, and we're like, wait a minute, that's a lot to take on. But it's not. It's not a lot to take on. Just reprogram your mind. Get in there and make it happen with the bigger deals. Leave the smaller deals to the smaller guys that just want to start off. You know what I mean? Just jump right in. Just jump right in and make it happen. Okay? Now, the perception is that you have to lease more apartment spaces to have the same net effect as leasing fewer office, retail, industrial space. That's the thing about it. All right? Now, currently, great apartment deals are out there. Some people think it's harder to find great apartment deals. I don't think it's all that hard to find great apartment deals. There's always a need for them. You just need to make sure that you're actively pursuing the brokers that are in the know. You guys know what pocket listings are, right? Something that's not advertised on the open market, right? Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, guys, in commercial, it's absolutely no different. These brokers have these listings, and those deals that you think are the great deals that are never around, they're just not advertised. They're not just sitting on LoopNet for 120 days or 6 months, 180 days. They're actually pocket listings that brokers are going direct to the people who know can perform, and those are the people that provide what's in your system, which is the acquisition criteria. So get out there, get that acquisition criteria in their hands, okay? What you want to focus on is the prospects that are advertised below market value with high vacancy rates. Let me touch on vacancy rates for a second for everybody that has missed it the first time around. Most investors out there, they want to buy something which is an asset. And an asset is something that's income producing. What we want to focus on are the properties that have vacancy issues. And if a property has vacancy issues that we can overcome, then what we're going to do is we're going to get in there and cure that issue, cure that problem, because we're problem solvers, not just investors. So most people out there that practice conventional wisdom, they're looking to go ahead and purchase something that has a cap rate, that's producing income, and that doesn't have any vacancies or has little to no vacancies. You know, most people, if you go out there and you say, yeah, I'm looking to buy property that has a lot of vacancies or close to 100% vacant. Most brokers are going to say, why? Why would you want to do that? Don't you want to buy the income stream? Yeah, sure I do. I'm going to buy the income stream as soon as I go ahead and fill it. There's going to be an income stream. So you can get in there and you can focus on these problem properties and fix those issues and make it happen. All right? Most people don't want to purchase a liability. A liability is something that's not income producing. They want to go ahead and get in there and purchase something that is already producing income so they don't have to do the work. Lazy investors, right? We're all lazy investors, right? Who's not a lazy investor here? See, you proved it. Nobody raised your hand. All lazy investors. Make sure to stay away from structurally damaged, environmentally challenged, contaminated buildings unless you're an expert. Write that down. Unless you're an expert, or you bring the experts in. Now, there's certificates that you'll receive if you're looking for those type of environmental issues on buildings, and there's certificates that'll be passed on. We're going to talk about that later. And I'll tell you a story about a project on a Ford plant in Michigan that I was dealing with. Now, most common target prospects to look for are buildings that have management problems. Be nothing more than just a few simple things to change that will take that mismanaged property and pull it back into a cash cow. Page 17. Now, what that means is this, guys. I can't tell you how often properties are sitting there and they're mismanaged. And we ask, well, why didn't you just get a new management company? No, you can't do it. Can't get a new management company. And they never tell us why until we figure it out later. And then later we're like, we understand. You know, it was their cousin. It was their family member that was managing the property. These aren't professionals. Think about it. These are people that are sitting on these properties regardless if it was a self-storage facility, right? And you have to sit behind the counter all day. And you're, schlepping boxes and tape, rolls of tape, and collecting rent and dealing with people that come in and out. These people are not the professionals that recognize the market area and say, okay, there's 3 other self-storage facilities in a 2-mile square radius. These people are advertising this month as special. They just brought in new security cameras. They just brought in new vending machines. They just brought in this, that, and the other. We need to be up to speed on this. That's what a professional management company will do. They'll manage, they'll market, they'll promote, they'll continue to have the vacancies filled, and they will go ahead and collect all the rents. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with professionals, all right? And just because the property is poorly managed doesn't mean that it can't be a cash cow when you buy it. And when we cover letters of intent and contracts, we do have verbiage in there that gives us the right, guys, get this, it gives us the right to go ahead and cancel the existing management company. It doesn't mean that we're going to. If a management company is working and they're moving forward and maybe the seller just didn't have a budget in place for marketing to fill the vacancies, but the management company is totally on it 100%, there's no reason for us to cancel them out, but we want to have right because we want to have control. Write that down. All right, we want control. We want control to be able to get in there and turn it around. Obviously, a vacant building can't be, but the thing about it is, if something is sitting, let's say at 30% occupancy, all right, 30% occupancy, that is a deal that I would be interested in. Anything that's around 25, 30%, so write that down. 25, 30% occupancy, meaning 70, 75% vacancy. That's a great opportunity to get in there and turn that thing around. All right? That's a great opportunity. You can always improve the occupancy of a building and generate even more income and equity, and you can do a lot of profit centers we're going to talk about later. Never buy a vacant building with the intent to lease it up, regardless of this. Number 1, the price. Okay? Number 2, the condition. Or number 3, the terms. Unless, this is so powerful, unless the offer is subject to multiple signed leases prior to closing. You have to have multiple signed leases prior to closing, guys. Remember what I said? We're going to start at the exit strategy, then we're going to go ahead and work our way back to financing. That way we have our exit strategies in place. You don't want to go and close on vacant buildings out there without having some letters of intent from interested parties to come in and to lease your space, regardless of the price, regardless if they gave it to us. Remember I said, what if they just give us the building? Imagine if you took over 100,000 square feet of office retail, and then you find out that the foreclosure rate in that particular county or city is through the roof, and people don't even have cars, and the foot traffic's not even all that good. Now what you're doing is you're sitting on something that's absolutely useless. What you want to do is you want to focus on getting in there in hot areas with property that's just being mismanaged. You don't want to take over anybody's headache. All right? We don't buy on hope. We don't. We don't buy, close, and then say, well, we hope this thing gets filled up. That's all I got to say. No. Leave that for the retail newbies, guys. All right? Now, absentee owners. Many times absentee owners will purchase buildings and have them fully occupied, but the rents have not been increased in several years. Let me explain. People buy commercial property on appreciation all day long. I stated the case earlier. Okay? They go in there and they close on property and barely even break even. And what they're waiting for is the appreciation. Commercial cyclical, it goes up and down in cycle. Well, commercial real estate is always on the rise. Now, some of the property types are going to fluctuate a little bit, and we're going to talk about the formula to find out exactly when it's at its high point and when it's at its stable point. But commercial real estate is and always will be stable. Some property types are hotter than others, but it will be stable.